Hi, everyone. It's Allison Williams here, your law firm mentor, and we are here for yet another edition of Creating Momentum with our special guest, Maddy Martin. I am so excited to bring you today's show because I know that a lot of you have been asking for this and a lot of you have been talking about it in the group. So we wanted to make sure that we covered it, which is the all important area of intake. Right? We all know that getting clients in our law firm is what gives us business in law firm, right? If you don't get somebody in the door, you're not going to get them to be your client. So getting them in the door is that first step. And that first step is very critical and it's often overlooked. We don't give enough time to it. We don't give enough thought to it. We just hire somebody, stick them on the phones and say, when somebody calls, get them scheduled. But we don't give them the guidance that they need for that oftentimes. And so I was so happy when I had the opportunity to actually meet Maddy because we met telephonically. We met actually online. But when I learned that she was with Smith AI, I'd been hearing about this company forever. And so she's as ebullient a personality as the presence of the company online. So I was really excited to bring her to the group. So Maddy, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Allison. I'm thrilled to be here.
So everybody, I'm going to just give you a little heads up about Maddy so that you understand the wealth of knowledge that she's going to bring to the show today. So first of all, she is the head of growth and education for Smith AI, which is a virtual reception company that services phone calls, web chat, text messages, and combines human intelligence and artificial intelligence to help small businesses give happier clients and a better customer experience. Also, they help with getting more qualified leads, which is the greatest part of intake, not just getting butts and seats, but getting people that you actually want to work with that can actually help to grow your business. Now, Maddy has spent the last decade of her career growing tech companies from startup in New York all the way over to California. And she has expertise in a whole realm of marketing, which includes digital, SEO, affiliate marketing, partnerships, and event marketing. So Maddy really brings not just the knowledge of marketing to the space, but she also brings the customer service and creating the client relationship piece of it, which I think is so critical in intake. So I can't wait to dive into our conversation. Again, Maddy, welcome. We already have some people showing up. Hi, Miss Tiffany. I see you there. And for the rest of you, as you are coming in, please do say hi. Let us know that you're here. And please do feel free to ask questions as we go through the conversation. All right, so let's start with what I think is most important, which is communications in law firms in general, right? Solo and small law firms have challenges that larger firms often don't have. And one of those I know from just coaching clients as well as being the owner of a law firm is communication. So can you talk to us about what some of the challenges are for solo and small law firm owners in the area of communications?
Yeah, there are a number of challenges, and I think that if we start out from thinking about the opportunities, that gives us a good lay of the land for how important it is to be responsive and to communicate effectively. So the Clio Legal Trends reports from the past couple of years have shown that 2 out of 3 potential clients demand an instant response from an attorney, and that is the most important deciding factor for whether or not they hire a law firm. 2 out of 3 potential clients, but at the same time, we see that 59% of people who have a consultation with a firm don't hire that firm. So it's really important to, yes, be responsive, but also to be very careful in your responsiveness and in how you handle those communications so that you're steering the conversation, you're screening the potential client to make sure that you are scheduling consultations and next steps with people who are best suited to work with your firm and who you most want to work with. And oftentimes that's also a matter of the maturity of your firm and of your practice. Maturity meaning like how long you've been running, what your goals are, not only for, revenue, are you new or are you more seasoned, but also what do you want your work-life balance to be? Do you have a partner? And how much work do you really want to handle and for whom? Because the potential clients don't often know what it's going to be like to work with a lawyer and how much it's going to cost, different practice areas that lawyers do have specialties. All of these things are important for you to convey and not necessarily to expect that the client will know to ask you. So steering that conversation so it best protects your time is one of the most important elements to good intake.
Wow. So I think that's definitely a lot of great, valuable information. We have a lot of people showing up on the live. So I just want to acknowledge we have Christina Campbell. Hi, Carol Williams, Deborah Williams.
Hi, Carol.
Oh, you know Carol. That's great.
Oh, yeah. We just chatted yesterday.
There you go. All right, we got Robin Wernick here, lovely from New Jersey, and we have Jennifer Jones. So again, as people come into the live, please do feel free to stop in, say hi, and ask questions. So I think what you just said was such a mouthful of brilliance there, because I think there is a lot to be said about screening for the right type of client. And we all know that there are a lot of solos out here that are kind of just hustling for butts and seats, right? We're chasing checks. So when you are helping a firm really fine tune that and look for how to get the right person in, what types of things do you walk them through in the intake process in particular?
So I would say that there is never too early of a time to start with really refining and making more consistent your intake questions, and not getting too bogged down and having it be like a 20, 30 question list, but get to the core. And one of the best ways to do that is at the beginning and the end of the client life cycle. So in the beginning, look at the clients that you want to attract, who you know best exhibit the qualities of a great client for your firm, who you can best serve. And that's a matter of, what do their demographics look like, what practice areas, etc. But think about your favorite clients. Think about the clients that you took that actually you ended up regretting taking on. And then if you do exit interviews, which is a really great way, even as you're starting up, every single client can be so informational. Find out what their experience was like, what their expectations were like, and did you meet them, and then what your expectations were, and were those met as well based on the information that you took in at the very beginning. If you can, standardize the forms as much as possible so that you can end up handing them off and have a repeatable process that is more easily analyzed, because if you don't have this repeated process, not only can you not hand off something that you don't have directions for, but you also don't have the ability to compare apples to apples. So if you use the same intake process every single time, then yes, maybe those intake questions change over time. And you can mark down when you change them and how that changes your practice. But if you have consistent questions that are asked every time, it's really easy to compare the clients that are coming in and start to identify trends in the clients who end up being the people who you are best able to serve, who are happiest, and who best match your practice.
Oh gosh. So it sounds like you're a big proponent of systematizing your intake process.
I am. And I'm actually even a big proponent of systematizing your referral process, because I think that is such a huge channel for really good quality leads at the top of the funnel that people often don't see as something that can be systematized. But that is one way to get great quality leads at the outset, is to educate partners who then at scale can refer clients to you who are a good fit.
So the idea of getting the right fit client in there is something that you've kind of touched upon several times now. So I like the idea that we're really talking about getting the right type of person in. But when you talk about the idea of repeating a process, everybody that has had any contact with me and any contact with this group knows that I am very much a proponent of systematizing everything in the law firm. And in particular with intake, because when you look at intake, if you, like you said, if you're not able to compare apples to apples, how are you going to ever improve the quality of the clients as well as the quality of the client experience, so that even people that don't hire you have a positive experience of your law firm and will say great things about you? That only happens through knowing what you are doing and tracking it over time. So the fact that we kind of touched upon tracking a little bit earlier in the conversation than I was expecting, but I just kind of want to take it where I think it's going, which is, how do you, as a virtual reception company, actually work with firms? Because I mean, obviously, you're not on site at their law firms. How do you work with them on making sure that the data that they are collecting, or rather that you are collecting for them, helps them to improve the quality of their clients over time?
Well, I think, it really comes down to consistency and to sharing ethically these forms that don't give us access into their systems, but actually just give us the blank form to complete that then syncs with their system. So if you're using something like, a Clio Grow or a Lawmatics or, Lead Docket, some sort of CRM, where you have a basic form and then also connected to a calendaring solution that's online, you can give access and permission to a remote team that can take that initial conversation, actually by phone or even by web chat. So instead of having someone complete a form on your website, have a live conversation, right? And then go through these questions with a form that's available just as a URL online, doesn't require a login, so no threat of security or access to remote teams. And then that information is completed, it's logged in your system, and if you have marketing automation that's added, you can not only have a calendar appointment set up, but after you have that initial consult that's scheduled on the attorney's calendar, you can then say, okay, was this person ready? Maybe there's a delay, because sometimes depending on the practice area, it may not be the case that that person is ready to make a decision. It could be estate or family law. It could be personal injury or criminal defense, which is much more instantaneous in terms of the decision making that's going to happen. And then the communication flow after that happens with the proper cadence. So if you're in an estate practice, maybe you have a nurturing email drip that goes out that all stems back from the communication that was initially logged. They didn't retain you. And then what happens? You send them emails, you call, you follow up, and actually with a service like ours, we actually make outbound calls as well. So helping with that follow-up. And what all of this comes down to is consistent handling. So for many solo and small firm attorneys, you know, the experience can be very different if someone contacts your firm at 10 a.m. versus 2 p.m. if you're in a criminal defense practice, for example, and you're in court in the mornings. Someone may not reach you in the morning. They may think you're unresponsive. Someone may reach you in the afternoon and you're super responsive. If you use a service like a receptionist service or web chat or whatever, so that you're able to be super responsive no matter the channel at any time of day during your working hours, then no matter where you are or what work you're doing, and hopefully you're busy because your business is, your law firm is growing and thriving, you don't have to worry about the difference in quality and service that your potential clients are getting, because it's consistent every time because you delegated it, because it's really hard to be consistent when all of the weight is on your shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. And consistency is probably one of the struggles that I think a lot of solo and small law firms have, because they don't systematize and they don't keep the idea of this needs to run consistently from call to call, person to person, activity to activity, time of day to time of week. So we have a lot of questions coming in, which I'm really excited about. So I wanted to start with Jennifer Jones. She asked the question, where can I find sample questions sorted by the topic and the characteristics I'm seeking?
That is a very good question. I would say that there are, I mean, probably even within this group, people can make recommendations, but I have some presentations. If you DM me, I can share some examples of really well done intake forms, you know, from people who have shared those with me and have made them available. There's also really great resources in Lawyerist, for example. That group is very active and dynamic, and they probably have some guiding templates. And I would also look to the legal specific CRMs themselves. So within like the Clio Grow community, within the Lawmatics community, I think a lot of these software companies end up pseudo consulting for the clients that they have. And there are a number of really fantastic clients who are out there that I can probably connect you to as well. But I think that a proper answer to that question would take more time than we have right now. But I'd be happy to kind of point you in the right direction with resources.
Yeah, so I appreciate your offer of that. And one of the things that, and we have Regina Irene has shown up. She actually was one of the pretty faces that was attached to a recent advertisement for Smith AI. So we know that she uses your company and she's very happy with the service. Regina actually said that she could send a form that she uses. And Maddy, yes, thank you, Regina. And Maddy, if you would be willing to actually put it into the group instead of sending it to individuals, I think that would be helpful for the entire community. Yeah. So we'd love to have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So next question up actually comes from, she seems to have hopped off of my screen, but I will ask the question and then the person can identify themselves, or probably they'll pop back up on the screen again. So the question is, how does Smith AI handle the different types of clients, legal and non-legal, and with the variety of virtual receptionists? Back Office Betty's, for example, emphasizes that it works specifically with law firms and only a handful of virtual receptionists work with a particular firm. I'm interested in comparing the two.
Okay, that's a really good question and on a couple different levels. So the first thing that I would say is when you have a receptionist service that dedicates a team to you, to me that often is an indication of a lack of technology backing the program. So basically the reason that we're able to handle, all of our receptionists can handle calls from any of the businesses that we work with is because of the really sophisticated software that they use that prompts them to steer the conversation or answer questions based on the type of caller that is calling into that business. It's not scripted. It's actually a guided conversation based on the type of caller and then how to handle each individual type based on the guidance from that client. And it's prompted to them in a way that they have the information they need and can convey it as a real live person who's friendly, so they can focus not on the content, but on just delivering the message in a really nice way. I would say that when it comes to dedicated teams, they're inflexible. So imagine if you have a marketing campaign that's launching, well, you probably have to let your receptionist team know, like, we're going to have more calls that are coming through. So train up another person to back us up so I don't have missed calls. If you have unlimited receptionists available to you within the service that you're using, then you don't have to be wondering if the service can handle the excess capacity. So that's one thing in terms of business continuity you don't have to worry about. I would also say, all businesses that need a friendly receptionist are looking almost for the core services that are delivered by a great receptionist and great software, right? So we automatically block all spam and sales calls. Our receptionists are not dealing with or stressed out by any of that by any of those conversations. They're just handling calls primarily for businesses that have, clients that pay them, oftentimes quite a significant amount of money. These are service-driven businesses with clients that are oftentimes in the thousands, all the way down to businesses that just have an interest in delivering a really great customer experience. But at the root of it, the businesses that use us that get the most gain are those that have sensitive clients, because if we have someone who calls us for an IT consultant, for example, and they're really stressed out because their computers aren't working at their business and it's stopping them from doing business, it's costing them money. Dealing with someone who is stressed out like that and being very thoughtful and empathetic, sympathetic, and responding in a way that takes care of them and also captures the information that you need to give back to the business is very similar to handling a conversation on behalf of a law firm with someone who may be calling for an immigration or criminal defense or family divorce child custody issue that is also under stress. So our specialty, I would say, is dealing with clients who oftentimes have sensitive or high stress issues, but because we have that capacity, it makes handling clients and leads for businesses that don't have that need very easy. So we can really handle everything under that gamut.
So I'm glad that someone specifically asked about Smith AI and noted the idea of comparison, because you and I were talking before we got on the live about something that I just wanted to share with the community. And it's the idea of kind of what you really want in your intake person, whether it's a person, a team, an offsite virtual, is that you really want the people to have emotional intelligence and to convey that through the phone. And it's difficult sometimes when you give someone a script that they now feel, I need to make sure that I stay on this script. And so at the Legal Sales for Attorneys and Non-Attorneys retreat we had recently, I shared with everybody a story about one of my previous intake professionals. And what he did was, he was new to intake. We had just kind of completed his base training and he was on the phones alone for the first time. So he recalled the woman that had called in. And when she called in, she was reporting something very distressing that happened. Now she's ready to file for divorce because she was just so jarred by infidelity and she found it and that sort of thing. And the very first thing after she blurts out that she caught her husband with her sister, that my intake professional said was, "Great, tomorrow at 9:00 then?" And
pretty insensitive.
I was like, all right, well, that's the way to seize on that urgency. But let's note that this is something bad, and we feel awful for this poor woman.
Yeah.
And he was great. He had a consistently climbing intake role, and we were in intake conversion rate. We were actually very sad to see him go to law school. Like, just stay with us and do this here. But you know, that's an example of how a script is not always, you know, necessarily the best way to go. So you talked about the fact that you don't have a script per se, you have a guided conversation. So how do you actually train up the people that work for Smith AI on being that emotionally intelligent voice on the phone so that they receive information and use it in an appropriate manner?
So actually, we screen for that in the hiring process. We look for a lot of technical skills. They have to be able to handle a lot of things at once, information coming at them from a ton of different clients that they have to handle, while also being really polite and friendly and kind on the phone and thoughtful and listening. But, you know, if someone has good typing speed and high internet connection, because all of our team is remote, you know, they need certain technical capacities with their systems. They also get screened on their emotional intelligence, their background, and proven track record for delivering great service, oftentimes, you know, remotely or even in person. So they come to us with those customer service, hospitality backgrounds, even office management backgrounds, where they have to have a balance of serving a business and a client at the same time. And I think that comes to this mix of an intake person in the best case scenario and in the most successful scenario is often someone who knows when to, based on listening skills, be more customer service and minded and listen and be patient, and then also steer the conversation in a way that is a really savvy technique of a salesperson. So it shouldn't be pushy, but it should be guiding and stewarding that person so that the conversation is shaped to be, you really come to the right place. Let me comfort you and then tell you why you're in the right place and how we're going to serve you. And this is the next step based on our expertise. Because you're in the right place, we know how to handle this. And these are the next steps, because typically, again, law firm clients are not familiar with how it's going to work. So how do you demonstrate expertise? And I think that that also sets you up for a really successful balance in the client relationship, where you have exerted a good degree of control and guidance early on, and that helps you maintain control and responsiveness from the client so that you can best serve them throughout the entire process.
That is 1000% correct. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself when you say that, you know, how you start the relationship is oftentimes setting the tone for how the client is going to interact with you throughout the entire attorney-client relationship.
Yeah, setting expectations is critical. And also, I think that that gets into, I see a lot of solo and small firm attorneys using their personal cell phones, for example, or I'm just going to make this one exception, or I said I know, right? Like I said I'm not going to respond after 6 p.m. and then you're responding after 6 p.m. And the fact is, as human beings, we know that if we don't do what we say we're going to do, the expectation is based on the action, not on the speech, right? So if you respond to my call at 7 p.m., then I'm going to expect that you did it once, you're going to do it again, because you've proven that you've already done it once. Right. So setting those boundaries and expectations early on is really critical to not only you giving a great client experience, but also you not being resentful as a business owner around how much of your time is spent on your business based on the goals that you've set for yourself.
Yeah, that's very good advice for business owners, that, you know, you really set the tone, and if you break your own rules, you're not going to have a lot of success at creating the structure and the boundaries around life so that you can have life and work at the same time. So we have a great question here from Christina Campbell. She says, I understand that the receptionist at Smith AI can complete the intake sheet. Would you say that they can be trained to go a step further to sell the paid consultation?
Oh, absolutely. We book consultations all the time. And actually, our receptionists not only sign an NDA, but also a confidential information agreement. So like they can handle that credit card payment over the phone. And if you don't already have it, there are a lot of great solutions like Acuity, Schedule Once, online calendaring that basically gives us access to your calendar based on the parameters that you set. So once someone completes that intake form and you indicate what a potential client's answers look like, who you want to then hire, who you want to then schedule a consultation on your behalf, then we will go ahead and take that next step. And some people just use us as the gatekeeper and don't charge for consults. Some people do say, take this credit card, debit, ACH payment over the phone, and you can even credit that to their first bill if they hire you, which is a really nice option. So for the most serious people, they're not penalized, but they have skin in the game. And then when you set up these things, and by the way, Calendly is free if you don't already have online calendaring. I just think that that's step one. But Acuity and a lot of these other things will, after the questions are answered, give opportunity to schedule the appointment and then to take payment so it's done securely, and then set expectations. Like, this will be a video call, or this will be an in-person meeting. And if it's in person, these are the directions, and this is where you park so that you're not late to the meeting, because let me tell you, those details matter. And if someone derails your day because they couldn't find where to park, that's actually really easily fixed. So how do you make the most of that conversation? This person can not only schedule that appointment, they can also call and remind for a day prior to the meeting, or early in that morning before an afternoon meeting. They can also call and follow up after the consultation if you've already sent the retainer agreement and you haven't received it, or even if you don't have paid invoices that are past due, or someone is often late on payments. We can make those calls, which is really nice to have a neutral third party do rather than you, because you have, especially when someone is a client, that close personal relationship that can be sort of eroded or poked holes in if you start talking about the uncomfortable realm of finances and the fact that they're paying for you for that relationship, even if it is close and it works very well. It can be uncomfortable. So that's a way to alleviate that.
Yeah, so you gave us a lot there in terms of how you can actually have someone off-site have some access to be able to do things to schedule for you and also take payments without having access to things that are otherwise confidential and that might cause a risk for, disclosure in terms of the attorney-client relationship.
It's not gathering or digging into information in your system. It's take this information and put it in your system so that there's no ethical issue around, oh, this person's now got a login to my CRM, or this team does. What are they able to poke around into? Like, a remote vendor really should not have that level of access. So when you set up your calendaring, just set it up so that you've got a 15-minute buffer between appointments, and it's only between 1 and 4 that the appointments are available. And those parameters are built into the system so that whenever someone sees, like a receptionist sees your availability, whatever they book is going to work well on your calendar.
So let's talk a little bit, since you mentioned the systems, the various different systems that people would employ. I love the fact that Smith AI can actually do some of the follow-up around once you have that call or once you've given that retainer, and that can also alleviate some pressure for the solo small law firm. But at the same time, depending on the number of leads as well as the volume of traffic of calls coming in, that can start to shift between when you need a virtual service and when you need someone full-time on staff. So what is the normal call volume or lead flow that you would expect to see from a firm that wants to use your service?
It really depends, and we work with clients. Actually, even our website doesn't even reflect the call volume that we handle for many of our clients, which is many hundreds or even thousands of calls a month. So we can work with, and I think this is one of the ways that we also really distinguish ourselves from other services, is that at $70 a month, we can handle just 10 calls for you, which is, we're blocking automatically the spam and sales. We're handling just those few as you're getting started, or overflow from your in-house person who maybe has to take a sick day or a medical appointment or needs to run an errand, and we can make sure that those calls don't go to voicemail. Or you're just getting started, but your clients few and far between, that 1 out of those 10 calls is going to be super valuable to you. the price point of $70 a month is sort of a no-brainer for that. I mean, people say for the spam blocking alone. Now, at the higher level, we can actually handle very complex call flows. So imagine that you have actually a firm with 5, 6 attorneys, an intake specialist who you want us to transfer calls to, a paralegal who also has certain responsibilities in their own calendar. We can even take those different transfer points that have different qualifying factors and route calls to them based on who reaches us. So if you're solo and your call volume is very low, or you're a growing small firm boutique practice that does have multiple staff that need calls handled, we can fit in wherever you need us to. You can also seat us into different areas of your IVR. So for example, for your phone tree, you may say new clients press 1, existing clients press 2, just as a basic example. We can handle only those new client calls. Or you may say, for IT firms, for example, existing clients, be super responsive. That's part of our VIP service delivery. Take down the information and then pass it to our technical team, and we'll handle their support request. So it really depends on the nature of your business and where you see us fitting in, but it can be all calls, some calls, or just overflow if you want us to ring you first and then be the backup so that no one reaches voicemail during business hours.
Wow. So it sounds like there's a lot of different options depending on where you see your firm in its communications overall. Is that something that you kind of help the business owner? Because I think a lot of people, they don't know what they don't know, right? So they probably say, I don't know if I need to hire somebody, or if my part-time girl that comes in Tuesdays and Thursdays is the one to go, or my part-time guy, don't let me be non-PC.
Oh yeah, I mean, almost never are people fired. You know, in the case where someone is shifting to use us, it's almost always like I'm not going to hire someone in the beginning because I'm a small business and I don't know if I have the responsibility or wherewithal to actually pay for someone's salary consistently. And when I have a receptionist service, I pay for my usage. And that feels like a much more responsible business decision to me, so that I'm only paying for the volume that is coming in. If I see that I'm not, going to max out the calls that I prepaid for, I'm going to make outbound calls, or I'm going to change it month to month based on my volume. But it becomes a really predictable, easily budgeted way to get the most out of your, often limited budget in a solo or small practice. A single person in the office, oftentimes they're, more valuable on other things. So maybe you have a paralegal and they're being repurposed to do this other work. I would ask yourself, do you have the capacity to give them more work? And if so, are they also maybe not fully satisfied with their job because they were hired to be a paralegal? And what does the longevity at your firm look like for them if they're doing work that is not at their peak capacity? So, when you hire people, you want to also make sure that their career goals are in mind, and that you have the wherewithal of supporting them and the hours that they require in order to do the amount of work to support their household.
That's a very good point. It's I think a lot of times as business owners, we have a get in where you fit in kind of attitude. Like, okay, this person will be my receptionist, my legal assistant, my paralegal, my best friend, my dog's groomer. They just kind of do everything, right?
Oh yeah, I work at startups. I know how it goes. Jack of all trades. I'm cleaning the, so to speak, cleaning the toilet and also speaking on stage at national events. It's the same. I wear many hats. I get it.
Yeah. But, wearing many hats is often not the best utilization, like you said, because you could be finding ways to give billable work to a paralegal the amount of money that you're going to spend to have somebody field phone calls is negligible relative to the amount of money you can make off that same hour by a billing professional.
It's fine in a short-term basis, and everyone expects that to some extent, especially going into a small business, and if they don't expect it, you should probably, during onboarding, tell them, it's not just going to be paralegal work. Like, there are undoubtedly things that you're going to do that are outside of that direct silo. But I will also say that you get to a really good point, Allison, which is the opportunity cost, right? Like if someone, you or a paralegal, is best suited to do work that has higher value for your firm and can even be billed out, then how are you best serving your firm as a business and yourself and your employees by using people who have a higher hourly rate than you need to be paying for them to answer the phones and to do routine tasks? Also, there is a cost to switching. For every interruption they have in their day when they're working on valuable, deep work, 23 minutes on average is lost just from the sort of refactoring time, the time around the interruption, not even the interruption itself. That is a major loss in value to the firm that doesn't have to be incurred when you don't have unscheduled interruptions.
Perfect point. And one of the things that I love about Smith AI is the fact that from just talking to you, and of course I'll be very candid, I'm not a loyalist to just about any service. I tell people all the time, we have to find solutions that work for us, and there are a lot of good solutions in the marketplace. But when you and I spoke, I got a very real sense of the idea that you were really kind of becoming a co-leader with the law firm owner in the areas of communications in their law firm, that you weren't just selling them a one-stop shop. Here, this is what we offer. It's X dollars or it's X number of calls. It was very much tailored to what is the need of the business owner.
I mean, we've handled a million conversations at this point between, calls and chats and text messages now. And we know that responsiveness is not just a matter of time, it's also a matter of the channel. And as sort of that front line, it's like whenever you go into a business, like the person who really holds the reins is like that person in the front office. And now it's like that remote person who's that gatekeeper who sees all. It's like this omnivision that you get when you see all the back-end systems that you plug into. And that's actually led us to create a ton of CLE education for lawyers, because we do specialize in law. It's just not 100% of what we do. So saying we've seen all these, best practices and also missteps. Here's how to hit the ground running in a solo practice. Here are the most valuable automations and delegating opportunities and software that is affordable, that is within reach for you to not only pay for and afford, but also implement yourself without like a ton of, consulting or hand-holding. So we really do try and see the firm and what they say they need and translate that into, I know you were looking at this process, but this one we've found actually works a lot better. Or you're giving us a 20-question intake form, pushing back a little bit and saying, do you really want to, have us handle a 20, 30-minute call? Or do you want to really get down to the meat of it with these 5 to 7 questions? And then get on the phone with that consult that is paid for, that is also kind of a qualifying barrier in and of itself.
Well, that's a very good point, because I think a lot of lawyers, before they start working with a professional offsite, either intake service or virtual reception service, they don't know what they need. So what they try to do is they try to preserve their time by having the intake professional ask 40 questions. And then they already know what their thoughts are about the case. So when they meet with the person, they can kind of streamline or shortcut that process. But I'm not a big proponent of that. I always tell people the relationship needs to be continuous. So you have a relationship on the phone, you have a relationship in person, and that ultimately is what is going to congeal the person becoming your client. But I do want to ask something that I think is kind of implicit in your name, which is about artificial intelligence, because the name of the firm is Smith AI. What is the artificial intelligence component of what you offer to lawyers that would work with your service?
So we automatically, as I mentioned, we're blocking known spammers, not only on a global level for all of our clients, but also on an account basis, which I think is very interesting for people who say, I'm working with this vendor and they're actually a vendor I pay for, versus this vendor is contacting me as a salesperson and that's spam to me, right? So being able to differentiate that, integrating with the CRM systems and the intake software, calendars, et cetera, so that after every call or chat or text, that information is logged as a new client or an updated record in your system, and the entire chat transcript or the entire call summary is passed to you via email or text message or even Slack. So the level of the integrations that we offer is, I think, unparalleled with other services. But also on the chat side, one real example that I would say that really clearly identifies like what is AI for us. Imagine that you're on a website chat and you and I are chatting, and I don't know what other languages you speak, Allison, but I speak very bad French, and I would not be able to handle like an entire conversation with a new potential like immigration attorney lead, for example, like in French.
I speak legalese.
I would stumble all over that, and they'd be like, this is a joke. But I may have all the information, I just can't convey it, right? So we find that a lot of our firms want, for example, English and Spanish fluency. On chat, we've actually made it possible so that no matter who you reach, even an English-speaking only receptionist can answer a Spanish-speaking website visitor, and they can translate their chats into Spanish automatically for that visitor. The Spanish chats are translated automatically to them in English, and they can have a fluid conversation regardless of the actual individual's fluency, which to me is outstanding and gets to another plane of responsiveness, because it's that consideration, that thoughtfulness is totally conveyed, and there's no language blocker or delay because of that natural language processing that's happening.
Oh God. Well, you're right. That is such a revolutionary thought if you think about it, because many of our of solo and small law firm attorneys, especially if they service an only or primarily Spanish speaking clientele, they often struggle with finding a Spanish speaking receptionist or a Spanish speaking intake professional. And then you also are limiting the marketplace if you think about that, because yes, you can find capable people that speak a multitude of languages, but if you put that limiter on it, there's a lot of qualified people that otherwise are not qualified just because of the language barrier.
100%. And not only that, but imagine if there is a shortage. I mean, I'm an econ major, and the first thing that I think is that a shortage in supply means an increase in cost, right? So you're going to pay more for that person who is harder to find, whereas you're going to pay less for a service that is remote, that is enabled by AI. So you know that like you're hiring more, again, getting back to our original conversation earlier on, you're hiring for that sentiment, that customer service, instead of just desperate, this person can speak 2 languages. You don't have to lose out on those soft skills that are so important to deliver to potential clients. And the nice thing that we're seeing also with web chat is that we can predictively have responses baked into frequently asked questions. So after hours, like even though our receptionists are on 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time, 5 to 6 Pacific, and we're looking to be expanding those in chat live as well. The really nice thing is when you have automatic answers that are predicted based on past responses, you get 24/7 responsiveness, and you get really, really consistent responses that can even follow a workflow. So imagine if you don't have an intake form, but you actually have 5 or 7 questions answered within a chat that's then logged in your system, and it doesn't feel like the person is completing a form fill. They're actually just having a conversation. They don't have to worry about being overheard in their office. They can be at their desk on their computer, connecting with a law firm that can serve them, and then get a scheduled appointment. All of that is handled without having to take an extra break or having your coworker wonder, what are you up to? Who are you on the phone with? Why are you contacting a law firm? You know, it's really discreet, which I think combined with the AI shows us how human nature and technology are really powerful together. And web chat is just an example that I cite over and over again as an example that's really relatable there.
Yeah, and I think we all know that now. I mean, when we talk about the options that we want to give to our clients, they're also the options that we are starting to use in our marketplace. I
Right.
mean, the number of times we get text reminders from the doctor or the dentist or the auto mechanic. Now
Right.
automation is just kind of the way in which our world has evolved. So the fact that you're importing that into your law firm is not just making you the sign of the times, right? So that
Mhm.
people don't feel like they're going to ma and pa's shop. They feel like they're going to a sophisticated business, whether it's small or it's large, really does improve the level at which, the level of confidence that people are going to have to work with your business.
But it's also still a really good experience for you as the firm owner, because I think a lot of the fear and the lack of action around adopting these new solutions comes out of the misconception that it's going to incur more interruptions for you. So if you have technology or a service that allows you to hand off a lot of those automatically or in a delegation way, hand off a lot of those initial conversations and that screening, then it allows you to be both responsive and not interrupted, which is the balance that we're looking for.
Oh God. Well, when you mention not interrupted, of course, the first person that comes to mind is Regina Irene, because one of the things that she's a big proponent of is that, no, clients don't get to email me. Clients don't get to hop into my phone system whenever they want to. I have a system for that. And one of the
Right.
messages that she dropped earlier was that she was away for 2 weeks and Smith AI handled all of her calls. She had 2 new clients sign up, not just sign up for a consultation. They actually signed up sight unseen because they had such a positive experience on the phone. And
That's
based on the
awesome.
workflow that she had given to you guys as to how she wanted you to interface with her public, ultimately she was able to not just reduce the time on the phone, but reduce the ultimate conversion cycle.
And you get such peace of mind knowing that you can change your directions anytime. Or, for example, we work with Justine Nickel, who's in Colorado, and she just brought on a new partner, this amazing woman, Jen. They have a criminal defense firm, and she was able to update her phone system pretty simply to say, okay, my Acuity calendar now supports 2 people, and my website reflects this. But the fundamentals of her firm work the same way. It's just that her receptionist service, like in Smith AI, gets updated directions. We can change on a dime, basically, and then you feel like we can grow and flex with you, whether you're taking a vacation or you're bringing on a new partner, you've added a practice area. We have people who we work with, actually, you have different numbers for different offices. One's in Boston, one's in LA. So I would say, like, my biggest recommendation is to not assume what a service can do anymore, because it's not ye old receptionist service. It's really pretty sophisticated. So push us to try and tackle whatever you think is going to be a challenge, because you may be surprised. It's pretty sophisticated at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like. Now, one of the things that we didn't really cover, but I want to kind of circle back to this, is the idea about just reception service, because intake is a component of what Smith AI does, but you really do the whole gambit of virtual reception. And one of the things I know that you and I have talked about is the impact of SEO and the fact that now you can drive anyone to your website through SEO. And everybody, having a website is just as necessary as having a phone number. But you have that website, you draw people to your website, people then call your office, but there are many people that, are you doing pro bono? Do you offer free consults? Do you work for free? And that type of person is not who you want in your funnel.
Probably not, right?
Probably not. So tell me about how a virtual receptionist, how company can help with that, because I know that if you have someone on site, they kind of get a sense, eyes and ears, just from being in your environment, of what you want and what you don't want, even if you're not meticulous in training. But when someone's off site, they get a little less of that intuitive knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that it's really important whenever using a receptionist service to give them the information that they need, where to find it, and then also a decently long leash, so that maybe you learn over time, oh, it would have been better if you answered this way, but you at least see how they answer and the opportunity to change, rather than having a brick wall there and say, there's no way I can use this service for more. just because you haven't even explored that or pushed them to the total limit, which is probably greater than you expect. But I would say with SEO, as you're expanding and you're improving your website and your web presence and your online reviews, for example, people come to visit your website. What we know is that they really don't read. They're scrolling through their phones oftentimes, and they don't feel the onus is on them to vet themselves. So part of the process is not just taking a call and taking a message. I feel like the most value is given when you actually are empowered to steer that conversation, to give information proactively, and then to go through some of those questions and not just say, yeah, we'll take a message, or we'll drop you in this person's voicemail box, or they'll get back to you, and then you have to play phone tag. Much better to say, this person isn't available right now, but even if it's not a consult, let me, based on the directions that I have, let me schedule a callback for you, for a 15-minute callback on their calendar, right? Or maybe it's the paralegal who gives a call back, or it's someone who gives a call back. So you're not playing phone tag with this person. An existing client is a good example of that. Maybe it's even a vendor or a lead. One of the other ways that you can reduce the amount of calls that come in that are interrupting, beyond spam blocking, obviously, is with the website chat that is automatic responses, with a web page that has FAQ very clear, that says, we do this, we don't do this. These are common questions that we answer. Even Kim Bennett, who's in Atlanta, she's a client. I admire the fact that she's actually built, I admire a lot of things about her, but I admire the fact that she's built actually a help docs section of her website. So if you go to, I think it's educate.kbennettlaw.com, she says, here's what a virtual law practice is. And Q&A that's not a blog post, so that people can self-serve and understand the information that they're commonly asking. And then also for people who are maybe not the right fit, have a page on your website that gives referral resources, firms you recommend, referral services from the Bar Association, educational information around what is pro bono and who qualifies for it versus like low bono, as some people are now saying, sliding scale fees. Like, there's so much information out there that you can help steer them in the right direction more automatically. And we even have people who say, when you finish a screening and this person's not a good potential fit for the firm, please recommend this firm for this practice area, or in this location, I recommend A, B, and C. We will follow those directions. But I encourage you to put that on your website. And not only is that a great service, and you may even get a really good review out of that service delivery, but you can also go ahead and ask those people in the firms that you're recommending, hey, look, I'm recommending you. Would you be willing to do the same for me? And on your website or in your screening process, I am looking for new clients. My firm is growing. I'd be so glad if you'd be willing to refer clients to me as well. And if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is like, the reciprocity that comes in that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's the golden rule.
Yeah, so we talked about web chat. We talked about just on phone virtual. Let's talk a little bit about chatbot, because that's one of the things that I've seen now in lots of different on lots of different law firm websites and websites in general. Mm-hmm. And depending on how it's executed, you may get a great response, or you may get a not so great response. Because I think that lawyers like to disclaim everything. So you go into the chat bot, and this is not a lawyer, this is not legal advice, you're not going to ever be able to sue me.
An attorney-client relationship.
Right, all of that. And then you get the 45 pages of content out of the way, and then you say, so how can we help? And by that time, sometimes the client is like, never mind.
It's only a few lines of content. This isn't an attorney-client relationship, and this is not legal advice. And the person who is staffing the chat is not a lawyer, and anything you share will be recorded. Like, those are probably 4 things that you should say. But I would also say that ability to answer frequently asked questions is a huge benefit. We actually even offer our chat software for free if you want to staff it yourself. You can build in your own Q&A. You can build in your own playbooks and sequences for getting those intake questions. And that allows you to have really consistent and even 24/7 responsiveness to people who are on your website. You can build in your referrals into that. And I think as long as you're clear about, is it a bot or is it a human being, or this is a bot, but there's someone sort of like, paying attention to this conversation. So you can say like this help word and it'll flag this person to, jump in. The more you're transparent, I think the better. And that sets the expectations early on and the boundaries for that person who's chatting with you. And you can always say, hey, like, it seems like you have a lot of questions, and these are often questions that we hear from people who hire us, and we're actually a really good fit for serving. Why don't you go ahead and schedule a consultation? And again, steering that conversation.
So how exactly, I mean, you just mentioned that, there's actually a chat bot that you facilitate, that you will allow people to install, and they can source it themselves, but obviously they like to have professional help with that. How do you get into the content that should be in the chat bot? Is that something that you interview the owner and you kind of say, what is it that you want to convey here? Do you give recommendations as to how to convert people more likely to come in and get a scheduled consultation with them? How do you use it?
So I do that in my like webinars and CLE education, how to use technology and automate intake and delegate intake. But I also, I would say that when we have the full staff service, we do a lot of proactive building of the knowledge base for the client. And we also can help with creating playbooks. Like, for example, we just talked to this client, Ryan McKean, who is in Connecticut, and he created this sequenced process where in 13 minutes, he's actually able to intake a new potential client. And that's something that we work alongside. That chatbot, that automation. And if you're using the free service for one user, you can add in for $25 to $50 a month, unlimited Q&A, build it yourself. And then in groups like these, clients, kind of like take those phone conversations and translate them into the chats, test them with friends and family.
There. And we are at the end of our hour here. I'm having some technological difficulties on my end, so I apologize for what I hear is the feedback. But we are at the end of our hour. And Maddy, I just want to thank you so much for all that you offered in terms of content for our team. And everyone that's here that's been asking questions, thank you for jumping in. Maddy, can you tell everybody how they can reach you if they want to learn more about Smith AI?
Yes, absolutely. So you can reach us at smith.ai, which is our website. You can call us, the phone number is on there, and then you can also chat with us live and kick the tires, call us, see how we sound on the phone, see how we respond on the chat. And we do a free call, free 10-call trial, 5-chat trial up to 30 days. And everything is month to month, and it starts at $60 to $70 a month. So there is no risk. And then also, Allison, I am just trying to look up on my phone right now. I believe the promo code that we created for you was LFM or Law Firm Mentor 50. Do you have that in front of you? If not, we can share it after the conversation. But there is a $50 off code that we have made available for your viewers and your followers. So you are welcome to not only get the 10-call, 5-chat free trial, but also $50 off your first month. And that is just part of being part of Allison's wonderful community.
So I will actually share that after today's program. So again, I want to just thank everybody for tuning in today. Maddy, you've offered us so much great information to think about. For everyone that's on the live already saying that Maddy has been such a great resource that they chose to work with Smith AI and they love it. I think that's wonderful information. Please do not overwhelm the inbox of those people. Uh,
That's all right. Bring it
I'm
on.
sure they will do a great job of selling for Maddy, but obviously Maddy is the person, the point of contact, and she's a wonderful resource for the community as well as for those that are interested in hiring a virtual reception service. So again, I apologize that I am off screen and having some technological difficulties, but you can still see the lovely Maddy. And I want to thank her again for her great interview today. And thank you all for being a part of the community. I'm Allison Williams, your law firm mentor. Have a great day.